The energy transition is something that's happening globally. We hear our federal government talking about it. We hear utilities across the world talking about it. And it's essentially talking about increased use of electricity, particularly. Some of that is coming from electrification, which means traditionally where you may have used gas as your energy resource, you're now using electricity. So you're electrifying. And that's being driven not only by changes in policy happening at federal and provincial levels in Canada, but there's also a lot of movement and change happening on its own outside of the policy world too.
People are electrifying, they're trying to reduce emissions, they're investing in new technologies. We know it'll be a real challenge to reduce all emissions. So the reason we use the term net zero is we don't think getting to zero emissions will be actually practically possible.
The particular goals that we have in Canada and are also in Manitoba are a net zero grid, meaning the electricity grid, be net zero by the year 2035, and a net zero economy by 2050.
As the province grows and we see economic growth and we have our residential sector growing and there can be growth in the industrial and the commercial sectors, everything all comes together to contribute to what's causing our increases in demand.
So it's everything from economic development that's happening in our province. It could be requests for demand of new businesses, data centers, and AI is having a huge impact, driving electric vehicles, including buses. All of that leads to using more electricity.
The challenge with electrification is that we're going to have to make our system bigger, have more transmission lines. Maybe the distribution system in your local community has to be upgraded to handle all the electric cars. And most of all, what we plan for in this process is how many more generating resources do we have to build in here in Manitoba?
Manitoba Hydro is required to ensure that we have a reliable supply of energy for Manitobans. That's our fundamental mandate, and that's why we do what we do. A lot of global national studies say the total amount of energy that we need could grow by 2 to 3 times in the next 25 or more years. And so we've seen those same kind of results that could in fact happen in Manitoba. So planning has been ongoing at Manitoba Hydro for decades. There's many folks who've been doing this a very long time. They do that for both our electricity and natural gas systems, and they do that both from looking at where our supply and our energy resources are coming from, but they also look at how we're going to deliver that supply, especially through our grids.
We do this work to make sure we're planning for the future and able to meet all of the demands coming our way, but in a way that also makes sure we're adhering to our other values and not overly burdening our customers. So cost is one of the main drivers that will dictate whether or not a resource option is being selected. And depending on what our system needs, a specific resource may or may not be an appropriate fit. It can be new wind, it could be new combustion turbines, it could include small modular reactors, it could include solar. So any of the emerging technologies that we're keeping an eye on and we feel have sufficient information to incorporate in our modeling.
And we consider all of them and try to come up with the best mix that we think will meet the needs of Manitoba. And all of that takes time to do and a lot of resources. And you can only build and invest in so many things at the same time.
Planning doesn't just include building new energy resources. We look at doing major overhauls or refurbishments to our existing asset. And by doing that, you may be able to expand the life of the asset. You may be able to get more energy out at certain times. Another key aspect is looking at how we manage our load. We can have efficiency where people are reducing their energy use, but if they can also reduce that use at the time when the demand for that energy is highest, when all customers are trying to access energy, that's even more valuable to Manitobans. And when you do some of those activities, you're able to avoid building, because building new infrastructure can be really expensive.
We want to make sure that we always meet this minimum reliability standard here in Manitoba, because our customers rely on it. Our job is to spend all of our time thinking about what's best for our customers. It's a full-time job for us to look at all the complex issues looking to Manitobans' future.
If we look at how energy is being provided to all of Manitobans and we figure out the most efficient ways to do that, then fundamentally everyone in Manitoba should benefit by having lower overall rates.
I think that our planning process, which is ongoing and continual, is what gives me confidence that we will be able to make sure we remain prepared out in the future. And as long as we continue to do that work, I think we will be able to meet whatever comes our way.